story, so tell it.
So it was a Saturday morning in the 1990-somethings when I arrived home to find my grandmother flipping through the pages of one of my gay magazines. Having been out late the night before, I wasn't in any shape for what would come next. My grandma, who would have fit right in as a detective on Law and Order, with her interrogative nature and withering glare, looked up from the magazine, open to a full-page Olivia Cruz ad, took a drink of her instant coffee, I just said instant coffee here in the land of Starbucks, and said, "Amber, let me ask you something. Why do they have cruise ships for your kind of people?" Right. After confirming that I am Moses and would indeed lead all of my people to the promised land, Palm Springs, I turned the question back to her, asking, would you and Grandpa be comfortable on a boat with several hundred LGBT plus couples? And a very quick and resounding, good God, no. To which I succinctly replied, this is why we have our own boat. About the time I reached the stairs, she mutters, "Huh, gay cruising. You couldn't have thought of that? We'd all be rich." Now I share that story to illustrate the polarity of views between a 60-something retiree who made good during the post-depression years through hard work, perseverance, and a prodigious soapbox, and a not-so-in-the-closet 20-something challenging her grandparents' very definite ideas about the way you should live your life. You know the formula. Straight, married, kids, good job, buy a house, don't make waves. Certainly not a string of girlfriends, late nights, and a loose idea of what to be when you grow up. Now, gay wasn't new for my family, but that's a different talk. But my refusal to be anyone less than I am was new and certainly made things uncomfortable for everyone now and then. And I'm here to tell you that regardless of how often I challenged them, pushed back, and occasionally was even disrespectful, my grandparents threw the doors open for my community and me, because change happens one conversation at a time. Even something as seemingly insignificant as a passing question about a big gay. Fast forward 25 years and our country is still a landscape filled with people who are confused by us, refuse to acknowledge us, much less consider including us. Most of us have encountered folks who hold fast to their preconceived notions and ignorance of what being LGBT plus means, only now they have new tools at their disposal. A 24-hour news cycle with so many closed minds and open mouths, social media filled with people living their false reality in real time, consuming fake news, and my personal favorite, sharing without confirming authenticity. But we can change that landscape. I know one day we will achieve a world where each of us can be exactly who we are, where we are, with whoever is in the room. A community of people who support us even when they don't fully agree with us. A world where young people don't agonize about sharing their truth at the dining room table or in the high school cafeteria. Rather, they get to share as normally as straight kids have always been able to do. Imagine, too, that LGBT plus employees will bring their full selves to work each and every day, and that we no longer have 53% who feel it necessary to hide the most important parts of who they are in the workplace. Now, this isn't some Pollyanna dream of mine. I really believe that we can get there by being brave and vulnerable and by leveraging the one tool every single person on the planet has: story. Telling your story is how we change the world one conversation at a time. Story is the most powerful and valuable way to affect change because everyone can relate to it. Everyone. Young and old, gay and straight, Big Ten or SEC, Team Adam, Team Christina, everyone relates to story. We find our sense of belonging through story. Now, I know that many of you will resist this idea because you've tried before, or you don't think you have anything interesting to say. However, I submit to you that your story, told using a few guidelines, can change minds and in turn, change the world. Isn't that exciting? You don't have to run for office, unless you want to. You don't have to march in protest, unless you want to. You don't even have to work that hard at it. You just be you and tell about being you. Yoko Ono once said, you change the world by being yourself. Simple, right? Not always easy. Show of hands, how many of you are tired of coming out? Always having to tell your story in some way or another. Right? Whether we're LGBT plus or allies, all of us are always coming out in some way or another because often someone in the room is not in the know. Some of you lived a completely different life before you came out, so really, no one knows. Right about now, some of my ally friends are scratching their heads thinking, I don't come out. But you do, and your stories are among the most powerful, and they need to be heard. My 22-year-old received her lifetime ally membership because she has not one, but 2 sets of LGBT plus parents. Isn't that like winning the gay lottery or something? Talk about an interesting story. But seriously, your coming out story is one of the most powerful ways that you can affect change amidst all of the sarcasm and vitriol in the world today, moving the needle closer to acceptance and inclusion. And it can be scary to tell your story, especially to an audience that is unknown to you. So here are 3 guidelines that you can really use to drive change through story. Number 1, get crystal clear on your one thing and refine it. For me, it's being unabashedly me. Since coming out in 1988, I've never been any less than me, even when it was unpopular, and trust me, it was unpopular lots of times in plenty of places. Back then, it was about being accepted for exactly who I am. Then it was all about LGBT plus rights, including marriage equality. Now it's telling my story and making the business case for full belonging in the workplace. My details have evolved, but my one thing never changes. I'm going to be me, everywhere I go, all the time, regardless of who is in the room or what's at stake. In this world, there's so much chatter, with people saying so many words with very little meaning, that your well-articulated one thing will give people pause to reflect on what you're saying and how it applies to them. That's how we move from the current state of divisiveness to open and welcoming inclusivity. Just imagine that for a second. Isn't it amazing? So, what's your one thing? And don't sit there and act like you don't have something. Everybody has something. Do a little soul searching and think about conversations that you have over and over again with people in this space. What do you talk about the most? What really ignites your passion? Ding, ding, ding. There's your one thing. Pro tip, know when to land the plane. And by that I mean resist the urge to ramble on and on with every minute detail. Know your audience, folks. Some of the most powerful stories in the world are the shortest, like Hemingway's 6-word story. For sale, baby shoes, never worn. There's something to be said for brevity sometimes. Push back when you need to. It's okay to gently put people in their place if they're getting too personal. But ask yourself, is this someone just being nosy, or is this old head trash of mine? It could just be an opportunity for you to be vulnerable and discover a plot twist in your story. Next, be authentic. You can't do this work if you're not willing to be real, warts and all. When I say I have always been unabashedly me, there have been times that it was really difficult to be around me. When I was newly out of the closet, I committed to spreading rainbows everywhere. I just assumed I was out, you should be too. You get a rainbow, you get a rainbow. I was obnoxious, but I sure was authentic. When people can sense that you are real, they naturally gravitate to a place of comfort, of safety, and of belonging. And with all of the fake reality in the world, a great gift to give to someone. You, being authentic, sharing your story to change minds and open hearts on the way to inclusion for everyone, everywhere. Finally, bring your full self all day, every day. This may be the toughest behavior to change because it means being fully honest with yourself about how much you're really holding back. Be aware, you may meet with some resistance. He's too femme, she's too butch. Is that a man or a woman? Or my personal favorite, I just can't accept your lifestyle. Really? Golf is a lifestyle. Travel is a lifestyle. But I digress. Our natural tendency is to shrink inward and modify our behavior for the comfort of others. Don't do it. It's your turn to resist. Keep putting it out there. Speak up when you don't agree with the tone or content of the conversation. Post your pride pics. Raise money for your favorite LGBT+ organizations. I have a question for you. Does anyone else experience this? You can get 150 likes for posting a cute picture of your pets or your kid, but post anything about social advocacy and it's crickets. Just want to make sure it wasn't just me. Creating discomfort motivates change. So when you become exhausted with where we are right now, policy rollbacks, workplace discrimination, hate crimes, and the list goes on, tell your story and live your truth. Create some discomfort and help open people's minds to a new paradigm because you belong. Now, changing the world doesn't have to be something you do on a global level. Changing the world can be as simple as opening the minds and hearts of the people in your homeowners association or your kids' PTA group. It can be inviting a few coworkers to open a conversation about their discomfort with members of the LGBT+ community. It can simply be you showing up every day, owning who you are, and sharing your full self with those around you. In the words of Robin Williams, who was a strong ally of our community, no matter what people tell you, words and ideas can change the world. So if you don't feel like you have anything to contribute, remember that we stand on the shoulders of those who came before us, refusing to be silenced. They resisted police raids in the places where we find safety and community. They stood up for healthcare rights during the AIDS crisis. They told their stories to anyone who would listen, and they changed the world. A place where everybody belongs. This is what the world looks like when you tell your story. Change really does happen one conversation at a time. So get busy, because we're all in this boat together. Thank you very much.